Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Trace Network Labs Twitter Spaces. This is episode number 17, and I am your host, Poshak Dua. I'm so glad all of you are here, and our speakers are going to be joining in the next couple of minutes. We're going to be discussing Metaverse and everything that's evolving and changing in this space so fast and so quickly. And so that all of you can keep up with what's happening, we do this episode every week to bring relevant proponents in the space and discuss one topic. So we have our speakers here. One of our speakers couldn't join because she's not feeling well, but hopefully in the coming spaces we will have her as well. We have Aakash, we have Mohit, we have Naman. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining the spaces. And in just a couple of minutes, we will begin. Let's wait for a few more people to jump in and then we'll start. Excellent. I think we have all our speakers over here. So before, as we are waiting for more and more people to jump in, let's take a quick introduction of all our speakers. We have Mohit, Naman, and Akash. So starting from Mohit, Mohit, give a quick 30-second to a minute introduction of what you do and how did you come into this space as well, and what are you doing in this space?
Introduction. I am author of a very popular article on the internet, WTF is blockchain, as well as I was one of the first people to start a crypto focused fund. And I've been running it since 2017. It was very public fund, but then over last 2 years, I have made it private with very limited LPs. So that's what I do in crypto.
Awesome, awesome. So we would love to have your insights on the kind of things that you've been doing and the kind of interesting work that you've done. And I'm really fascinated by what you're doing in the public space as well in terms of explaining things simply and blockchain as well. So we'll get to that as well. Naman, can you tell everybody, give a quick 30-second introduction of what you do and how did you get into this space and what you are doing in this space?
For sure, Poshak. Hey, hi guys. So I joined Web3 space back in 2017. Have been degening my way through the space since 4 years. Co-founded India's biggest crypto community. Next month I will be turning 5 years active in Web3. By the way, fun fact: when I joined Web3, it wasn't called Web3. We used to just call it crypto or blockchain industry. But I had the pleasure of seeing the industry grow at such a fast pace. Recently, I joined Cypherock, where we are building the world's first seedless hardware wallet. So yeah, that's all about it.
Awesome. That's a wonderful introduction. And even right now, we are calling it, some people try to call it Web 5. So we don't know where it's actually going. So next we have Akash. Akash would love a quick introduction of 30 seconds, 1 minute. What are you building and how did you get into the space?
Hey guys. Hope you guys can hear me. So I'm the product lead for our Web3 product at a startup named Phyllo. What we do is we're building data infrastructure through APIs for the creator economy, and of course Web3 is a big part of any creator's life and future these days. So that's what we are trying to make easier in the creator economy. My journey in the Web3 blockchain space actually started in 2015, 2016. In 2017, I actually organized the first blockchain conference at Harvard Business School while I was studying there. And so that was really interesting where we could get folks from a lot of different spaces. And that was a time when regulation was a big question on people's minds. So, been interested in this space from multiple different angles, from the business side, regulation side, investor side for a few years now.
Awesome. That's a wonderful introduction and would love to discuss more on what you're building exactly for creators and how it can help as well. So now, I think we can come to our topic. The topic for today is identity in the metaverse. It's something that we at Trace are very passionate about because we believe that your identity in the metaverse is going to be very important, and which is why we started by building avatars that look exactly like you in the metaverse. And there are a lot of layers to it, and we can go as deep as we want. But let's on a overview, on a basic view, I would love to know from our speakers, what do they understand by identity in the virtual world or in the metaverse. So I think we can start with Akash maybe this time. So Akash, if you would like to expand on that, like what does it come in your mind when you hear the word identity in the metaverse?
Yeah, and
Akash, I think you muted yourself.
oh, my bad. I was saying that so this ties in well with what we are doing at Phyllo, and our view is that someone's identity in the metaverse, but also someone's identity in general, is isn't one particular thing, but it's a amalgamation or aggregation of different data points. If you think of identity in the real world today, most people think of identity as their, Aadhaar card or passport or some sort of a government document. But if you dig a little bit deeper, someone's identity is also linked to what is the work they do, who are the people that they, are connected to, who is part of their family. So it goes through multiple layers of what defines what someone is. Now, if we translate that from the sort of Web 2 offline world to now the online world with Web 3, what that means is that people's identity is spread across a bunch of different platforms and a bunch of different, siloed platforms at that. And I think that's where the power of Web 3 comes in, where the data itself and the identity of someone can be rooted in digital infrastructure directly, and people are constantly building their identity as they are working for DAOs, as they are buying NFTs, selling NFTs. That all forms a part of their overall identity, and I think that's what a lot of companies are trying to solve these days. Of how do you identify someone accurately in the metaverse or in the digital ecosystem, and how do you build up a user's reputation, which will then help you build products better for them, serve them better, offer them different services that are catered to them. But yeah, that's kind of my thought of identity here.
Absolutely. I think that's a great start for the session. I think you've covered so many aspects there, Akash, especially people buying NFTs, people participating in DAOs. And as the Web3 space evolves, there's so much else as well. You want to add on something? Okay. So, yeah, so there's so much more that we can discuss. Uh, Naman, would you like to add on to that? What do you understand by identity in the virtual world? Or how do you look at it?
Yeah, man, I agree. I completely agree with Akash. So, identity is just not a number that you attach to an NFT, like the numbers that we have with Bored Apes or DGods or any other NFT. It has a much deeper meaning to it. Like in the current scenario, if I ask what's your identity, you might say I'm an Indian, I am a Hindu, I am for or that for a matter of fact, I'm a Christian. Therefore, identity is what you believe in and what you stand for. Every country and every religion has a set of beliefs that the community believes in, and that's why they thrive together. So therefore, there there are a few dominant religions in the current centralized world, but as we move to a decentralized world, I doubt all these centralized world phenomena will transfer towards the decentralized world. There will be more deeper meaning and deeper there will be much more deeper meaning and separate goals that all these DAOs and all these NFT communities strive for. Just like a board ape, there are utility NFTs right now, but the PFP NFTs, even they do not have any uh, they do not have any common goal. They have some utility, but all these PFP NFTs are much more valuable than these, because that's a community that came together and are striving towards decentralization. So that's my thoughts.
Right. I think I completely relate to that. And I think you brought a very important point that uh, there are centralized religions, but in Web3, there are a lot of these PFP communities, and one person can be a part of different tribes at the same time. And so that's very interesting that your identity itself becomes very decentralized. And even we at Trace believe that sort of people should be allowed to enter into different metaverses. So our uh, avatar, the way we've built is it's like a decent, it's like an interoperable, it's just an NFT, so you can actually take it to different metaverses as the technology for that gets built. So that's quite fascinating. Mohit, finally coming to you. uh, would you do you have an opinion on this? Like, how do you look at the world of identity and metaverse and all of that?
Speak. And first of all, very good job, both Akash and Naman. I mean, how you have both put in context of real world identities. It's great. So I would like to build on top of both of their opinions. So is this way think across the problem of identity in the Web3 or crypto world, and Civic was trying to solve it way back in 2017 18. I always questioned, what is my identity? Who am I? Like, for my parents, I'm their son, but for my boss, I'm their employee. Like, who am I? So, what I realized, what I've come to conclude is that my identity is never absolute. It's always relative to who is judging me or who is evaluating me. So I'm the same person. A subset of me is identifiable to somebody in one way, while another subset of me is identifiable to somebody else in another way. And this was the hard conclusion that that I had to accept when thinking of identities in the crypto or metaverse or Web3 world. Now, this is my hypothesis that identities are relative. Now, relative to what? Suppose if I come at your doorstep and there's a person standing who looks exactly like me, who talks exactly like me. Now, my question is, do you really know that person is me? Or is it my clone? Like, how do you make sure that when somebody who looks exactly like same, who does exactly what they said they would do, but is it the same person that you want it to be there? It's just a little difficult to wrap your mind around, but the is that your past interactions with the person. So if you look in movies, like how do they verify that the person who spoke on the phone was actually the person who came to actually exchange the drugs? They ask, like, there's some secret question. Hey, only you would know the answer if you are the same person that you claim to be. What did I wear that day? Like your past is the ultimate form of your identity. Your participation or interaction with somebody is the ultimate form of your identity. And now my thoughts. So this is my question. This is what I think is a real identity. Now in metaverse, I think in the Web3 world, uh, the real genius is to build solution or to use a tool that allows you to build a fresh identity for this world. And when I say for this world, in metaverse there will be many worlds. As a user, I would say it would be genius for me to have a different identity in different worlds instead of carrying one identity in different across the worlds. A lot of people in the crypto space want to be anonymous. Why? Because of the repercussions that they might face in the real world for their actions in the digital world. So there has to be a layer of separation between two different dimensions or worlds. So my take is, in metaverse, the real genius solution will be that a tool or a protocol that allows somebody to build a fresh identity from the ground up in the Web3 digital decentralized dimension that is no way connected to your real life identity and no way transferable to anybody else. I mean, what you do always remains with you. You cannot transfer it to somebody else. So this is my overall take on identity in Metaverse or Web3.
Absolutely. So that's a great vision, Mohit. And I think to conclude that from all of you, one thing is clear, that identity is everything in the past, as you're saying, the accomplishments you have, the things you've done, the communities that you're part of, the NFTs that you've bought, and all of that kind of becomes a part of your identity. And I would say a layer on top of it, maybe the avatars you have as well in the metaverse. So that kind of becomes your identity. And then, of course, there are different ways that we are all navigating it and thinking about it. So
Poshak, just for I really love the fact that Mohit talked about different kind of identities that we build. So the tipping point of metaverses will come, and the real essence of identities will be needed when AI bots will be entering the metaverse. So there are already projects like ASM, Altered State Machine, who basically provide uh, AI access to masses. So if you there are 10,000 AIs, so there are AI trainers who train their NFTs, which have inbuilt AI in them, and basically at some point of time these NFTs will be entering the metaverse, and that is when the identity fact of metaverse will be at larger disposal, and identities will be needed most at that time, because we don't know who we are talking who we are talking to, because that could be a human, that could be an AI. So that's a different perspective that I just wanted to add.
yes, that's absolutely wonderful. Thank you for adding that, Naman. I think, wow, like imagining that even AIs would be replicating our identity in the metaverse, and how do we tackle that? That's, I think, another level of pain point that I think Twitter is already facing that on some level. So I think we are already there. But to imagine how much more difficult it can get, I'm sure there'll be solutions around it. So I'd love to know that, since all three of you are in some way builders or involved in building products, I'd love to know what kind of innovations or what kind of trends are you seeing related to identity in the virtual world, since Naman talked about AI, ASM, and all of these things happening. So, what kind of trends, other trends that all of you are noticing? Let's go with Mohit this time.
Also good timing because I might have to drop off at around 9, so in another 10 minutes.
Sure, sure. Yeah,
So
Mohit, you
I'll give
can
you my
speak.
overview of what I see in the wild out there. So I see a few things, few trends. Number one is uh, identity solutions that are trying to prove your based identity into the digital world, and these are centralized solutions like Civic. So there's a centralized component. Everything is decentralized, but there's a centralized component that actually looks at your passport and verifies on the chain. Hey, okay, this wallet actually belongs to this person who he claims to be. That is one. Second is I uh, to put your earth-based identity in the digital world, but through decentralized mechanism. And they use some really fancy tools zero knowledge proof. So in these, what you do is you create your wallet, you put everything like your SSN number, secure social security number, your Aadhaar card number, your passport number, any identity that you want in a smart contract that nobody else can read unless you give them the zero knowledge proof. Hey, you want to verify that I possess a passport with this number, here's the proof, and you prove it without getting to know my passport number. So again, both of them are trying to take your real world identity into web3 world, either centralized or decentralized way. Then there are identity systems which are saying, hey, you can start afresh. Things like ENS. All you do is you just start with ENS name, like Mamoria.eth. Eth is my ENS name. And whatever you do with this domain, whatever you do with this name on Ethereum blockchain or anywhere in the world, it shows in the blockchain as like all the steps that you have taken. You own an NFT, it is provable just by telling them that hey, you own this ENS name. So you're building your fresh steps on in there. These are three things that I mostly see out there. There are other tools, for example, like Trace, which are trying to build avatar, like different layers on top of that. But at the very fundamental layer, these are three things that I see. And my personal bet would be on the solutions which are in the category three, which are allowing you to start a very fresh journey in the Web3 or the blockchain world.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Mohit. Just stick around for the next 7-8 minutes, and we'll just get opinion of Naman and Akash on this as well. Naman, what's your opinion and the kind of trends? I think you've already shared one. Is there anything else that comes to your mind?
Oh man, it's a 24/7 industry. So there's all kind of crazy things that go on all the time. So I was just reading about this. There was a world's first NFT movie that was minted last month. So it was by the name of Kilroy was here. So what they are trying to do is they basically minted the whole movie. Then they minted each character, and each character will be sold as an NFT. Once the NFT is minted and there's a buyer, the buyer can if the buyer holds the NFT for three, let's say 3 to 4 months, he gets the power to change the characteristics of that character in the movie. Now when the second part of the movie is being made, they they will have to redesign the whole storyboard in accordance to the new characters that each and every character has in it now, which is an addition to the previous characters that he had. So once that is incorporated, there are thousands of people working on a movie. We could see like some crazy innovation happening in the movie space, which has for some point of time been stagnant. So that is one that strikes my mind the most.
Awesome, awesome. That's really fascinating. The kind of things that are happening really are like it's difficult to even track down everything that's going on in the Web3 space. Akash, I'd love to know what Akash thinks, but I think there's some internet problem. So let's quickly move on to the next question as well, and let's get Mohit's opinion on that. Oh, Akash has jumped in. Akash, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry.
Perfect. No worries. Akash, would you like to add on to that, the kind of trends that are happening in the virtual world, and maybe talk about what Mohit and Naman said as well?
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't catch what Naman said, but I heard Mohit talking about zero knowledge proofs. And yeah, I think that's one of the interesting trends. The other thing, Mohit, earlier you talked about how there are going to be some people in Web3 and in the metaverse who want to keep their identity anonymous or want to have selective identities based on the use case that they're going for. Totally agree with that. I want to talk about the other end of the spectrum where there are some users who say, why do I've already built a reputation and built an identity in the Web 2 world. Why do I have to start from scratch in the metaverse? So take for example, Gary Vee. He's a famous YouTuber, vlogger, designer, entrepreneur, bunch of different things. So he doesn't want to start from scratch on in the metaverse. He wants to actually leverage his reputation, fan following, communities that he's built on all of these Web 2 platforms to add authenticity and add leverage to anything that he launches in the Web 3 world. So what that means is that, you know, despite what a lot of folks think of as the world is going to be either Web 2 or Web 3, where it's a fight between Web 2 and Web 3 today, the reality is, unfortunately, going to be much more boring, where it's going to be Web 2 and Web 3 coexisting. And there are going to be parts and there's going to be identity that is constantly shared between the two worlds and between the two tech stacks. At the end of the day, if we want to scale beyond a few million people who are interested in Web3, it means that the 100 millionth or the 1 billionth person who buys an NFT won't even know what Ethereum is or won't even know what a blockchain is. All they are doing is buying a digital asset, which is coincidentally, which is built on top of this cool new infrastructure and technology, but they don't have to know any of that. So I think we need to think about how these worlds are going to combine and going to collide and coexist as we go into the future.
Mohit, you want to add on to something?
Yeah, can I just speak for a minute?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. Akash, you cannot see me, but I'm actually saluting you. You brought up a very interesting point about what happens to you, the all the reputation, the influence that you have built in this world. Uh, and how I actually understand, so I'm not trying to refute your point, but I'm just trying to like I know where you're coming from, and I have thought about it, and this is how I think of it. So think of like a person, say Gary Vee, who has built his influence on YouTube. But when the same person wants to build influence on another platform, say Instagram, they have to start from zero. Of course, they can use their influence from one world to get some initial momentum going on in the second world, which is Instagram. They can use YouTube influence to get some initial followers on Instagram. But then after that, they have to become natively valuable to that the second platform, the second world, to keep growing that momentum that they have built initially. So my point is, I'm not saying everybody would like to have anonymous or different identities. I am saying uh, this one identity that people would be building in Web3, they'll everybody, no matter what is their net worth or no matter what is their influence on other platforms or on other mediums, but everybody will have to start from zero. They can use influence to build the initial momentum, but they have to start from zero and they have to be participating in the medium's native things. So and point one and point two, once they have built this identity, this Web3 identity, this would be their last identity that they would ever have to build, because influencers, creators want to build multiple identities on multiple platforms because of the fear that what if the platform shuts them out. But this would be their last identity that they'll build, but they'll have to build it from zero. They can use the influence from this world, but they'll have to start from zero, and this would be their last identity that they'll have to build, because this identity is something that they can take away with them wherever they go. So these are my thoughts, but I absolutely loved how you think about identities.
Awesome. I think that's really well said, Mohit. And whether it happens the way Akash was talking about it, I think all of you are in agreement in some way, or whether it happens in a very idealistic way, the way Mohit imagines. And I hope it happens that way. I think one thing is clear, that identity in the metaverse is going to play a very important role in the coming days ahead. And it's going to be very exciting. And Mohit, you have to leave now, I imagine.
Yeah. I have to go,
Okay.
guys.
So before you go, thank you so much, Mohit. I think you're one of the people who is so fluent and can explain the ideas so clearly, and I'm sure it's with you in any topic that you talk about. So we are very thankful at Trace that you decided to give some time and talk
Thank
about
you so
these
much,
topics.
Poshak. Thank you so much,
Thank you so
Poshak.
much.
All the best to you, to Trace and Akash and Aman. Loved hanging out with you guys. I mean, let's stay in touch and see what we can do. All the best.
Great. Awesome. Thank you, Mohit.
Awesome.
Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing. I think we've had a wonderful discussion of the kind of trends that are going on and the real identity and the identity of the virtual world. And one another topic in the kind of play, that we also were supposed to have an artist over here, but now we don't. So I just to like to get a quick perspective, because I'm sure a lot of artists will listen to it. So Naman and Akash. Let's go with Naman first. What role do you think artists can play in this role in this world of identity? Do you have any opinions on it, or maybe the kind of experiences and events we have, the kind of other things, experiences we are going to have in the metaverse? Is there a role of artists in that as well, in the whole identity space?
Definitely, man. Definitely. So the value of NFTs do not come from the art. I mean, the art is important to get the eyeballs on you, but the is to ultimate goal is what matters is the artist and the community and what they stand for. So if the artist stands for, let's say, mental health, and he does art around mental health, now the community members, the random people who believe in mental health, they come join together and make a community around that artist, and that's where they stand together for mental health and what they believe in it. So yeah, artists do definitely play more than the art, I believe. I could be wrong, but it's what the artist believes in and what he stands for, and what he builds the community around is what matters the most, according to me.
Right, absolutely. And I was looking at a lot of these projects in the wellness space, community NFT projects that they're coming up. And the utility is kind of just the community and also the wellness that people are providing to each other and maybe care to earn. A lot of these different kind of concepts are evolving. So it's quite fascinating to see what artists are actually building. Akash, you have an opinion on this? How identity can be built by artists or maybe different experiences in the metaverse?
Yeah, Naman touched on a really important point about artists are, in essence, storytellers, right? And any other Sapiens fans will agree that people natively and very at their core want to follow stories and want to follow people who are saying the same stories that they believe in. So for an artist, they are the ones who always bring people ahead and bring people forward into new phases of life, into new kind of thinking of life. I was recently in Italy and thinking about the entire, Renaissance that happened in Florence, and it's so interesting how that has shaped, of course, the city and the country, but it shaped so much of scientific thinking. It shaped so much of technology. It shaped so much of, Galileo's inventions and Da Vinci and all of these people who were artists, but they were also applying their art to technology, applying their art to astronomy, applying their art to inventions. Da Vinci had like manuscripts and drawings of flying machines and crazy stuff. So I think artists natively they're always looking for the next thing that can help them tell their story better. And in that way, I think identity in going forward is going to be shaped a lot by artists, because the artists are the ones, and here I'm kind of grouping artists and creators broadly into the same bucket. They're the ones who are able to tell stories and bring people along on the journey the best way. So if you think of a Bored Ape Yacht Club or any of these NFT projects today, the reason why, like Naman was saying, it's not about the art itself or the visual design itself. It's more about what is the story that they've told of, like apes, for example. It's about the rise of the Planet of the Apes and the rise of apes against what is the norms of the world. So that's the story that they've told, and anyone who believes in that story has associated their identity with the Bored Ape Yacht Club as a brand and as a story. So yeah, like I definitely think that artists and creators have a big role to play in identity and in shaping how this metaverse plays out.
Yeah, sorry, Poshak, I have something to add on. First of all, Akash, you
Go ahead.
articulated the idea very beautifully. Thank you for that. So I have something to add on. So if we look at if we compare Web 2 and Web 3, Web 2 fail at building communities. Like if Flipkart gives more discounts, you will buy at Flipkart. If Amazon gives more discount, you will buy at Amazon. You do not have any ownership over that platform. But with Web 3, everything is community based. So recently, I was having this thought: can Web 3 eradicate, not exactly eradicate, but weaken sadness and depression? So the idea behind it was, if someone wants if why does someone feel sad? He or she feels sad just because what they believe in, and what they stand for. They do not tend to find people in the Web 2 world who the people who stand for the same things. But with Web 3, if an artist develops tells a story around the thing that they believe in, they join the community, and thousands more join the community. And once all these people join the community, they they get strength in themselves, and that's where the beauty of Web 3 comes from, in my opinion. Yeah.
Absolutely, that's really well said, Naman. I'd like to add to what Akash said as well. He talked about Florence. I think it was a beautiful period because we had a lot of successful artists as well in that period, if I'm not wrong. And a lot of, I don't know, but in the Bitcoin community, they also talk about the fact that how they had a much more stable money, and because of that, that period flourished, and a lot of amazing things and art happened, and scientific developments, of course. So I think that kind of artistic development will just take our identities in the digital world to the next level, especially because there's this quote that I can recall where a person talks about the fact that a painting just by itself is just an object, but if you add story to it, if you add meaning to it, it becomes art. So a lot of times in modern art, these galleries, you see just a person taking a banana and tying it to tape, and just by itself is an object, but why he did it and why he thinks that's important, when he ties a story to it, that same object gets sold for millions of dollars. So the kind of perspective that artists can bring to identity, and the kind of things they can talk about, I think are unimaginable. And some of my heroes in the space, I would say, would be Beeple, and a lot of the other artists were just pushing the space forward. Drift. So it's fantastic to see where this is going. Personally, at Trace, we are very passionate about having artists showcase their work, maybe on our fashionable wearable NFTs, or maybe on shoes, any kind of fashion accessories that an avatar could wear. And I think that's a cool way to flash your art. So, moving on, I think we have around another 20 minutes left. So, just quickly discuss what identity is going to look like in the future. We've discussed how it is today and some of the things about the future as well. But now let's quickly move on to how identity is going to be in the future and how it's going to impact different things in the economy and the business world. So one of the questions that comes to mind is, if you're going to have a decentralized identity, if some people are going to be anonymous, some people are going to be out there leveraging their decentralized identity, how do you think it impacts businesses, and how do you think it impacts brands? Do you think brands evolve in a different way, and how do businesses evolve? Anyone would like to take it? Maybe Akash, go ahead. And you can talk about creator economy and what you were talking about in the beginning as well. Maybe tie that to it. That'd be perfect.
Yeah, yeah. So, um, let me talk a little bit about what I've heard some of these Web2 platforms, talk about their vision of their own platforms, and somehow how those tie back to this blockchain technology. So, the head of product at Instagram has been very vocal about this. Even some senior executives at YouTube have been very vocal about this, where they have talked about how do you build a membership model where a creator can actually directly own that relationship with the fans. So if you think of it today, for a YouTuber, they create their following on YouTube, but of course the perils there are that they are at the mercy of the YouTube algorithm. If YouTube the if the YouTube algorithm decides to show their type of content less, they lose their engagement and they can't just pick up their fan base and audience and move it to another platform. That gave rise to companies like Patreon, etc. And then YouTube and Instagram, all of them now have membership, direct membership models themselves where you can have this membership, but they're still siloed within the platforms. One of the things that these folks have talked about is is there a way that they can use blockchain technology to when a person becomes a member or joins as a fan of a creator, let's take Gary Vee again. If I become a member of Gary Vee on YouTube, can I be given a NFT and then I can go to Instagram and say, here's my NFT showing that I'm already a member of Gary Vee. So I get the privileges that a community member of Gary Vee's gets on Instagram. I can take that same token to a Discord server. I can take it to a OpenSea thread. I can take it to a bunch of places, but that's essentially my membership token that is proving to all of these platforms that I am a fan and I am a member of Gary Vee's community. Um, I think that's my vision of how this Web 2 and Web 3 world are going to coexist, where for a lot of things like content distribution and hosting, etc., having all of that decentralized doesn't really make economic sense. So it makes sense to have a lot of these things centralized, but the thin layer, which is the identity layer, which you can think of as membership, you can think of as reputation, can think of in different ways, but it's essentially the part that is transferable between platforms. That's the only piece that really needs to be on the blockchain. Everything else can be centralized and live in different silos as long as there is one thread that connects all of them. And that is where blockchain has the biggest use case in all of this. So I think that's how I see businesses and I see all these platforms today adopting this metaverse and adopting the Web3 space for that membership and for that identity layer.
Right, that's very fascinating, Akash. And would you say that even like your followers, the number of people liking your posts, all of that comes in that data layer, right?
Yeah, it's up to what needs to happen is there needs to be a consortium where all of these folks come together and define essentially a industry standard. These things happen today and already where for example a bunch of companies came together and defined what the standards for UPI would be. I mean, in India, the government did that, but they did that in partnership with a lot of financial institutions. Why can't there be a UPI or a account aggregator layer for social identity and social data, which is facilitated by blockchain technology, so that no single entity owns that. So yeah, I think that is how all of these folks can come together and play a role in this.
Right. I think that needs to be, especially because there's so many different metrics and so many different platforms. The only thing is, how do you, because someone can grow really fast on a platform like TikTok, but maybe not on YouTube. So, how do you bring all of that together? Like, so it makes sense to have these different platforms because someone who has, like, people have different abilities to grow on different platforms. So, if you merge all of them together and create a single identity, that will be maybe, yeah. So, but you could have, I think, different standards and layer it differently in some other way and come up with like one number or something like that. I don't know. Naman, how do you look at the whole identity thing and maybe how it impacts brands as well? Talk a little about that.
So you guys already did an amazing job, but I will just bring up a Web2 company that is doing very good when it comes to ownership in the Web2 world, and how they are integrated in Web2 and Web3. That brand is Shopify. So Shopify just launched their Web3 NFTs, NFT brand kind of a segment. It's a different segment that they launched. So what they are doing basically is whenever you go to a Shopify store, you get a so that store is like a it's like a shop that you go to. If you want to buy a candy, you go buy that candy from that shop. Now if you have that kind of ownership and that kind of relationship with that store, you uh, you tend to have that kind of ownership with them. Now if your ownership is very strong, you will try to build more relationship with them. So now what they have done is they so if anyone with a Shopify app has their NFT collection, so anyone with that with that NFT of that brand goes to the shop, the website will be completely different because that's the identity of the shop. So it's a premium kind of offering that that shop can give to their premium customers and the customers that they're attached to. So, and in case, let's see, Meebits and Board Ape Yacht Club does a collaboration. If someone has both their NFTs, Meebits and BYAC, in their wallet, and they go to a Shopify store, that the merchandise store that they launch. Now that shop uh, will have both of them, both of the collaboration. It will be a completely different store. So that the level of ownership just bounces by 10x if we do that, because you are attached to your BYAC, you are attached to your Meebits, and when you are going to a store, you are getting both of them. So that's beautifully that they are doing it. Coming to my point, uh, so let's go back in time. Let's take example of a band, a rock band. Now, back in 1940s, 50s, what they used to do, they used to record their label. They used to air it over radio, and once the song became popular, they used to do concerts and make money off it. Now, after that, what happened? CDs and CDs and discs launched. Now the customer had a kind of ownership. They could buy that label and play it at this house. So anyone buying that label had a kind of brag-worthy flex that they could do, and the kind of show off that they could do, that they have a kind of connect uh, with that rock band. Now the internet launched. When the internet launched, the ownership again went away. It poof gone. So with NFTs, what these bands like BTS can do, they can just launch a collection of their NFTs, which is providing a very close connection to the brand, to the brand that they have built, and plus the kind of decision that they can make. So again, there is like unlimited kind of possibilities with that kind of ownership that NFTs have bring to the space, and brands can do an amazing job, like we have seen with Nike just did a Metaverse collection NFT drop, and they made $177 million in the last year. So more and more brands will be coming into the space and trying to grab on the opportunity.
Awesome. I think Naman, that was very, very, very well said. I think you expanded on a lot of brands, and especially you talked about Shopify. So I sort of recalled the fact that one of Trace's vision is to actually become the Shopify of metaverses. So in a way, we are like building a meta stack where a lot of other stores can launch and build their own little fashion stores, and maybe a different kind of stores in the future. So that's very interesting, the kind of things that are being developed by Shopify and Nike in the NFT land as well. Akash, do you have anything else to add in terms of the kind of impact it'll have on businesses, or maybe the kind of new jobs it'll unlock in the economy?
Yeah, yeah. Naman's point was brilliant, and I think he touched upon one thing, which was NFTs enable this whole ecosystem and traceability, where think about the original Air Jordans that were launched in, I don't know, like 90s sometime. Today you have no idea who were the ones who got the first drop of those Air Jordans. But in the future, you know who got the first drop of Body Yacht Club, and that will be something and data that is never lost because the blockchain is immutable, it's decentralized, all of that. You the traceability of memberships and membership reputations across centuries and across decades is really something that people are still not valuing today, but that is something that is going to be a big value proposition of blockchain into the future. You can now any artist can now identify, once they hit 1 million subscribers, who was the one who bought their first NFT, who was the one who invested in their DAO first, things like that. And so that traceability element is a big key part of this whole equation. What it also enables is the artist to get the royalties and to get a cut of the transactions in perpetuity for whenever their assets are bought and sold. I mean, it's a shame today, like Nike, when they release Air Jordans, they sell them and people buy them, hoard them in the black market, and then sell them at a big premium. But Nike doesn't make any money off of the secondary sales. They just make whatever money they put on the price tag in the primary sale. And of course, they build some brand identity and reputation, but monetarily, they're not making any money from these antique and memorable Air Jordans, which are sold years later for thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. So when when there are antiques which are built in the NFT era, I think artists are the ones that are going to be gaining the most from that.
Absolutely. I think I agree with most of it in that, Akash, but I also am aware of the fact that a lot of things like the royalty is not actually enforceable on the smart contract level. So the hope is that, of course, the Web3 world moves in a way where everyone's actually giving royalty to artists. But I don't know how we'll be able to enable that when the technology itself on a smart contract level does not enable that. But I agree on the traceability part. The fact that we can actually trace who was the first holder or which wallet was the first wallet that bought this NFT. And that's a big part of what NFTs can do, especially if you think about it in the fact that we couldn't do that before. And just as a random fact, I googled and I found out that the first Air Jordan ones were released in 1985 on the 1st of April. So that's fascinating as well. And for those who are listening who don't know, Air Jordans are sneakers by Nike. So moving on to the final part, we've come almost to the end. We have close to 4 5 minutes left, and this is an open-ended question. So both of you can take it. Maybe take 2 to 3 minutes to answer this. What do you think is the ultimate potential of the metaverse, related to identity, or maybe not even that? Just broadly, how do you think the space will evolve and where this is going? Akash, you can take that first.
I'll have to think about that. Maybe come back to
Okay,
me.
so maybe so some of the things that people have talked about is the fact that, for example, it's going to become, of course, a lot more bigger. It's going to invite different kinds of people. So right now they're mainly just artists, but a lot of different kind of businesses are going to get built. At Trace, we believe that all kind of shopping, which is actually just uh, right now being done digitally on a 2D screen, will be done on a 3D, much more immersive screen where you can actually try on different clothes, and it's going to become physical, so physical plus digital. And we're going to have these physical clothes, but you'll also be able to wear it on your digital avatar. So that's the kind of world we see where the ultimate potential of metaverse is going to become. And then anybody can open their own store, maybe their own digital fashion store, and can have their store being built on any metaverse where people can come and shop these things. So I'd love to know the kind of things that both of you are imagining. Naman, you have something to say?
For sure, man. So before reaching the ultimate goal, I want to start where it starts. Uh, Identity and metaverse, they all stay the way they are just because of a tool that enables that, and that tool is the wallets that hold those identities and NFTs. There was this movie that was about to launch, which had a Bored Ape Yacht Club uh, NFT. I don't exactly remember the name, but just before a month of that launch, that the actor and producer, Mr. Green, Steve Green, I think his name was Steve Green. So he lost his BYAC to that scam, to that phishing scam that he got hacked in. So when the BYAC was lost, he did not have the IP rights that BYAC provides him. So if he launched the movie and the royalty that came from that movie, he was legally supposed to give it to the actual owner uh, of that uh, of that BYAC. So the wallets are what enable all the identity and metaverse. So in my opinion of wallets, upon that there are different things, but a small compact wallet that can integrate with a AR headset or VR headset is of utmost importance, and that is exactly what we are trying to build at Cypherock. So let's consider any other hardware wallet that you can attach to a VR headset. You will have to have a wire that attaches to the VR headset. But the kind of architecture that we are trying to build at Cypherock is a completely different kind of architecture. We have like four cards. You can just if you want to, if you, let's say you go to a virtual store, you like a avatar that you want to buy, or you like a Nike Air Jordan that you want to buy, which is a virtual Air Jordan. So you just grab a card, you just tap it on the VR headset, and boom, in your wallet. So that is the kind of power that wallets have, which right now is very underrated, to be honest. So yeah, that is exactly what we are trying to build. Coming to the ultimate goal of metaverse, metaverses are enabling a decentralized society to come into picture. Without it, all the innovations that have been happening are of no use. So the ultimate goal is to have a inclusive, decentralized society where the communities that that bring strength with them, they try to make a decentralized world that is inclusive to everyone. So that is a one line short answer that I want to give to the like what's the ultimate goal of metaverses.
Amazing. I think, Naman, that was really well said. Akash, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I don't have anything as nice as what Naman said in terms of like what is the ultimate goal of the metaverse. I feel like this entire phase is very chaotic, and uh it's going to lead to a lot of great things. But I don't think there's any one particular thing that I see as the ultimate goal. One of the things that I have been very fascinated with recently has been this whole distribution and unbundling of work, which is happening through these DAOs, and basically happening through Discord channels, and enabled by NFTs and crypto payments and things. But how this is enabling folks from around the world to contribute together or band together and say, hey, we have a joint mission. Doesn't matter that we're not in the same city or in the same pin code. Why can't we work together towards this mission through the digital economy? We saw this with the attempt to buy the Constitution in the US. There's similar things happening for forest rehabilitations in around the world in the Amazon, different places. So this whole concept of can you bring together people from around the world towards a particular cause? I think with these social platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, what we saw is people coming together for a joint sort of cause, but not actually doing any work, just saying like, hey, I identify, as, in X community. Why can't I find 1,000 people who have the same or similar identity as me from around the world? And why can't we come together and talk about what we believe in? Now that community can actually contribute and do work in the digital space, have shared roles, have responsibilities, send out payments, all of that. And that's something that's really fascinated me in the recent past, which we're thinking a lot about and figuring out how do we build identity or a data infrastructure layer for the DAO space.
Awesome. Amazing. I wish both of you the best of wishes from Trace as well as personally. I think both of you are very inspiring, and Mohit as well. And the kind of conversations we have, I'm sure anyone who is listening or will listen to it will spark a lot of ideas in conversation related to Metaverse. So I can't wait to see what people come up with. And I can't wait to see both of you in Trace Metaverse as well soon. And maybe we'll discuss it again a year from now in the Trace Metaverse. Again, thank you so much, Naman. Thank you, Akash, for giving us your valuable time, and hope to see you soon and discuss more things with both of you.
Thanks, man. Had a great time discussing with you.
Thanks, man. Equally, my brain is buzzing with ideas.
Anytime.
Awesome.
Uh,
Thanks, guys. This was awesome.
catch up with you later. Okay.
Great. Sure.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Thank you, Naman. Thank you, Akash. See you soon. Bye bye.
Thanks. Take care.